Hello, my name is Ted Gill. I'm the defensive line coach at Michigan State University. Today I'm going to talk to you about drills and techniques that will help you develop defensive linemen to defend against the run and pass. Hopefully these things that we teach you today will give you a good insight of how to help your linemen be the best that they can be. Today I'm going to talk to you about fundamentals that will help your defensive line defend against the run as well as the pass. There are a lot of things that we do here at Michigan State that will help your defensive line get better at certain things. So the first thing we want to do is talk a little bit about our philosophy as far as what we want our defensive line to look at. The first thing that we want to talk about is the most important attribute needs to be stated, is that the desire to get to the ball. We always talk about desire, getting to the ball. That's one of the things that we talk about every day that we practice, is desire to get to the ball. The second most important thing that we talk about is pride. Pride is an intangible that we thrive upon every day as a defensive lineman. We must strive upon this. Having great pride will help us to develop other players, but most important, it will make us be a better defense if one guy steps forward and creates great pride in that area. The next thing that we talk about is intelligence. This is another important factor that has played a big part in our defensive line as we start to play. One of the things that we talk about all the time is that there are a lot of things up front that we have to be able to do as a defensive line. So the intelligence factor is the most important thing that we can strive upon. Number one, you got to have perfect alignment, you got to have perfect assignment, and you got to be able to execute the technique that we want you to do. So in doing those type of things, the intelligence factor really fits in to what we're trying to get you to do. So again, as we go through and start talking about different things that we look upon for our defensive line, that's an area that we strive upon every day to make sure that we are working on getting the proper alignment, the proper stance, and doing the proper things that are involved with playing that defense. The next thing as we start to look at different things as a defensive lineman, is that we as a defensive line, our philosophy up front is a little different than most in that we stress upon attacking the line of scrimmage, getting off the line of scrimmage and rushing the passer first, and then the second part of that is reacting to the run. Whereas most teams that you will find, their premise is to stop the run first and then rush the passer. Ours is just the opposite. We want our guys getting off the line of scrimmage, so the first thing we do is that we want to get off the line of scrimmage. We want to attack the line of scrimmage. We also want to be in a situation in which we want to react to the run if the run occurs. So that's basically, as we get through it, when you start looking at us, those are the things that we're going to stress upon as we start talking our defensive line. Okay, penetrating defense by rushing the passer first, then reacting to the run. We have certain drills that we do every day that we want to make sure that our guys get this message. And the biggest thing that we start out with every day is that we do a drill called cage drills. And in this drill area, when we run our cage drills, we're working on certain areas of the body, we're working on certain areas of our feet, and we're working on certain areas on our body posture. So as we go through these drills, I'm going to show you a film of what we're looking for every day when we start our practice with our cage drills. In our cage drills, what we try to do are a series of drills that we like to work on. First one being fast steps, and which I'll show you on film, is that we're under a cage, but at the same time, we're working on trying to make sure that our guys are having fast steps and keeping good body posture. The second one is called shuffle steps, where we're shuffling through, but again, keeping our body in a certain area and keeping our hips in a situation where they're under our shoulder pads as we start to shuffle through. The third thing is that we'll work with a blocker in front of us, working on pressing the blocker. And as we work on pressing the blocker, we'll press the blocker and we'll work on, in a cage situation, of pressing and at the same time staying low as we do this. The fourth thing is stutter and get off, is that we're going to stutter our feet, and again, keeping that body posture where we're getting off front. And you'll see us as we start to stutter our feet and get off in the front, you'll start to see our body react a little differently. And then the last one is the shuffle and get off, in which we shuffle our feet, keeping our body posture in a great situation there with our head up, and then coming through and following through as we rush, okay? First one that we're working on is called fast steps. And in this drill right here, what we're working on is trying to get our feet and keeping our body in a position where we're getting a lot of steps as we go. And at the same time in this drill, we're looking straight ahead. As we get to the end of this drill, what we're going to do is explode out, okay? The thing I like about this drill, it really keeps our body and our knees bent and our hips low as we start to come through the line of scrimmage. You'll see the second guys coming through, they're chopping their feet. And what we're telling our guys in this drill is to get as many steps as we can as they come through. Good steps, good body posture, heads up, and then we're going to explode at the end. You see the next guys coming up, and we want to make sure again that we're having good body posture, keeping our body in a hitting situation right here. When we get to the end, coach is giving the command hit, which tells them to explode out underneath. Good drill here to really work on making sure that we have good body posture as we get through on the steps here. You'll see every guy is a little different in some sense as we go through the drill, but at the same time, what they're doing is using their body, their knees, keeping their knees bent and keeping their head up as they start to explode through. The next drill is called shuffle steps. Okay, shuffling steps, and what we're doing here is that we have two linemen going at the same time, okay? We snap the drill, we start the drill by snapping the ball, and what happens here is that we're going to shuffle our feet and keeping our shoulders square to the very end of the cage. The thing that we're looking for here in this drill is to make sure that we don't cross our feet and we're keeping our shoulders square and our knees bent. When we get to the end of the cage, we want to explode upfield. Next guys coming through are doing the same thing. You see that some guys' bodies are a little different, okay? But the thing that we're striving here a lot is keeping the feet up under the body and shuffling the feet and keeping the head up as we go through. The most important thing here is that We want to make sure that our guys keep a good posture as they go through under the cage. Next guy you'll see coming down does the same thing. You can see he's a little bit quicker, but again, his feet are up under his body, his head's up, his knees are bent, and he's got a good explosion coming up through the end. Okay, the next drill that we have is called the press. And the press drill that we do is that you'll see that we'll have two guys up under the cage, okay? And at this point in time, we have the player that's on the far end, he has one hand in the chest. And in this particular drill, what he's trying to do here, he's trying to create leverage at the same time of keeping his shoulders and knees bent as he starts to skate through down the line of scrimmage here. As he gets down through, what we're telling the offensive blocker is act like he's got him hooked, okay? And our defensive player is trying to escape by keeping his shoulders square and really forcing the line of scrimmage back. Very good drill to use for linemen that are weak, okay, because it helps them to make sure they got their hands inside and pressing forward. You always want to make sure in this drill that you're working to get forward on this drill. You never want them to go backwards. It's a good drill to use for ends and as well as tackles, working upfield. We do this a lot in preseason to really make sure they understand the little things about keeping their feet under them and keeping their hands inside so they can work upfield. The next one is called a stutter and get off, okay? On this particular drill right here is on the stutter and get off is that we're going to come out of our stance, okay? And we're going to explode out of our stance with quick feet, okay? But at the same time, we have to keep good body posture. And as we get to the middle of the cage, we're going to explode out right here to the end. Again, the discipline comes in at keeping your feet moving, keeping your shoulders square, and keeping your feet up under your body as you try to explode out. Good hand position, good feet position, good body structure. Good position right here by our tackles right here, keeping their hands up, keeping their hips down, and keeping your shoulders underneath as we go through. It's a very good drill to use as we start to come through. As you see them coming back, you'll see the same things that are happening here. Feet are moving. Head pops up right here. You shoot your hands. Now you got your feet going. It keeps your body in a good position right here to keep your shoulders and feet in a good position under the cage. Right here, good body position here. This is a very good drill to use to make sure that we keep our feet and shoulder pads at a good position underneath our body. Feet are here. Feet are working pretty good here underneath the shoulder pads. Heads are up. Hands are inside. Really coming off the drill there, okay? And we use those drills quite a bit as we start to come through on different plays. But again, this is something that we emulate every day as we go through practice. Again, I'll just show you this again so you can get a chance to see the guys working through, keeping their head up. Some guys, again, you see have different body structures, but again, the common thing here is to make sure their feet and shoulders stay up underneath their body here. Good position here. Good feet up underneath their body. Good shoulders square there. Okay. Okay. Now, the last one that we'll do is called shuffle and get off. Okay. In this drill, what we're trying to create in this situation is we're going to shuffle with our shoulders square, and at the same time, what we want to do is to mirror that guy in front of you as you're going down. Okay. And what I'm looking for here is that I'm looking for the feet to stay up underneath the body and not to cross. Again, it keeps the body in an erect position, and as they come from under the cage, they want to explode upfield and really work to keep their shoulders down. Shoulders has got to be square when we do this drill. The feet have to stay up underneath the body. The body has to be, your knees have to be bent underneath the body to make a good position as you come down through the drill here. Good position here. You can see in this situation right here, kids' feet are getting a little closer together. Again, we want to make sure the feet stay a little wide, but at the same time, working to keep your feet up underneath the body. Now we're going to get into stance and alignments, okay? I think a lot of times in college football, we as coaches, we mess around a lot of times of trying to get into the right stance. And my personal opinion about stance, your stance has to be based on what your philosophy is up front. Number one, if you're a reading defense, then you need to be in a reading stance. If you're an attacking defense, then you need to be in an attacking stance. So as I go through this, you'll see the different forms of stances that I think will help you as a high school coach or whomever, college coach or whomever who you want to line up and get in a good stance based on the type of defense that you play. The first stance that I'll talk about is the reading defense. In some teams that I have been associated with, we've been in a 3-point stance to read as well as a 4-point stance to read. But the point of emphasis in that stance comes in to where your feet are. If you're in a reading stance, then your feet have to be parallel, because at the same point in time, if you're reading an offensive lineman, that dictates on what you're looking at to read. And at the same point in time, your steps out of that stance has to be different. So if I'm reading, my first step, instead of stepping upfield, would be lateral. So I want my feet in a reading defense to be lateral. So if I'm stepping to the right or to the left, I'm stepping laterally to keep my shoulders square. Because at the same point of emphasis on reading defenses, you want to make sure that your shoulders stay square to the line of scrimmage. The second point of emphasis there on that is that if I'm in a 4-point stance, then I have 4 points down, and I'm doing the same type of thing in a reading defense. My feet are parallel, my hands are in front of my feet, and at the same time, what I am doing is that I'm attacking, but not attacking with my body going forward, but more attacking with my hands as my feet start to go lateral as I'm reading the defense. So again, want to make sure that in all the things that we do in a reading defense, it really pertains to where your feet are aligned as far as how you attack an offensive blocker. Okay, the next point I want to present to you is that if you are in a reading defense, the next thing that happens is that you have to change your stance if you're going to rush the passer. So if I'm going to change my stance, I'm rushing the passer, now what I want to get into is a sprinter stance. So I'm going to back my feet up, and I'm going to be more of a sprinter because now I want to have a good get off because now I want to go forward. So in all the things that we do, we want to make sure that if we're reading, we have to change our stance, okay? So you're in a reading stance, and all of this is based on down and distance. So again, if you're fighting a team that's going to pass on third and whatever, then you got to change your stance based on that game plan. Then again, it's another element that you have to teach. So again, you can see the differences as you're in a reading defense of changing your stance from run to pass can be a little different when you start to teach young men how to get into different stances. Next one is then on short yardage. When you're in short yardage, most teams, when you're down on short yardage, based on where the ball is and how much yards they need, would get into a 4-point stance, and you would get in a situation where your arms are bent and your hips are up and you're trying to come under and penetrate the line of scrimmage. In that sense, again, it's a little different. Most teams will utilize this in short yardage situations. But you can see that in a reading defense, as I went through all the stances, number one, you can either be in a 4-point stance or a 3-point stance, okay? And in any type of stance that you're in, if you're reading defense, your feet have to be parallel, okay? Then the next point of emphasis is that if I'm going to rush the passer, I have to change my stance, okay? So now I'm telling the young man that he's got to get into a different stance because of the fact that now we're going to rush the passer based on down the distance. And then the other thing that we get to the next element is short yardage, because now we change our stance again from a 4-point stance or a 3-point stance to being in a situation where we're getting our hips higher, and now we're going to periscope up as we come through. So you can see that being a little bit different as we get into a reading defense. In an attacking defense at Michigan State, our stances are completely different than reading. We teach one stance. And in that stance, what we do is that we teach a 3-point stance. We have a toe-heel stagger in our stance with our butt slightly higher than our shoulders, and we're in a situation where we're sprinting off the ball. Again, I can't emphasize enough to you that number one thing we want to do is penetrate the line of scrimmage. We're defending the pass first. We're getting off the ball. The second thing that we do is that we're going to react to the run. So in that situation is that if run occurs out of that stance, then we're reacting to the run. So in a sense, what we're doing is that we're not teaching a lot of stances. We're teaching one stance in a penetrating defense. Again, I don't have to spend a lot of time on, whether we're going to be in this stance for this particular thing, whether we're going to be in this stance for this particular situation. We teach one stance. Now, the only other thing that changes for us a little bit is that if we do change our stance and we're down in a short yardage situation, what we will do is that we will come to a 4-point stance, and what we will do is do the same thing that I talked about earlier, getting our butt a little higher and trying to penetrate the line of scrimmage by keeping our butt a little higher as we try to come off the line of scrimmage and penetrate. I think that will give us a better situation as far as defending against the run in a short yardage situation. In that situation, again, if the team comes up and throws a pass out of there, because we're in that stance, we have to adjust out of that stance and get to the quarterback. I think that's something that we'll really be able to do, and it really has helped us become a better defense because we only teach one stance, basically, in a penetrating front. What I'll attempt to do here is explain a little bit about our stance as well as a drill that we use in stepping out of our stance. And this is something that we develop here at the university to help us with our kids, because sometimes what they do, they overstride in their stance. So what you'll find here is as we go through this, I'm going to show you the stance and then show you the little drill that we use in our hoop drill. Okay, the first thing that we do here is that as we line up here, out of our stance, we want to make sure that our feet, with our left foot right here back, we're in a left-handed stance. Okay, so that means our left foot is back and our left hand is down. Okay, very important point here in our stance. We want to make sure that the left foot that is back, that foot is directly in front of that hand. Okay, that's down. Okay, so as we step out of our stance, we're going to have a measuring point as we step out of our stance. So as you look and see what these guys are doing in this hoop drill is that the up foot is just inside the hoop there. It's just inside the hoop. The back foot is just outside of the hoop, okay? And what happens, the hand that's down is sitting on the outside of the hoop. As you look here, you'll see that the hand is on the outside of the hoop here, but it's directly in front of the toe. Okay, now when we step out of our stance, the first thing that we're going to do is that we want to have a great measuring point as we step out of our stance. So when we step out of our stance, the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to step at our down hand. And what happens in that particular step is our hand, okay, that we're stepping at, we're going to step at the base of our hand. So as you watch these guys step on the first step here, you're going to see them step right here. Now, what you'll find is that you'll look at this young man right here, not a bad step there. This guy didn't step long enough right here, okay? This guy actually stepped outside the hoop, and this guy was still too short here, okay? So again, as you start to see these stances come out, you'll see a couple of different things that we preach, okay? Number one, the other thing we talked about is flat back. You can see that this young man here, his back is up in the air, okay? You see most of them are trying to emulate it, keeping the back flat as they step out of their stance. Let's go through and go to the next group. Okay, again, they get down in their stance, and you can see them taking a measuring point right here on their stance. Again, the hand should be in front of their foot. If the hand is on the outside of the foot, they will step at that hand, and sometimes it'll be in a situation where they're stepping too wide. If they put their hand on the inside, they'll step across their body. So it's very important that their hand stays in front of their foot when they step. So when we step out of our stance, we want to make sure that our foot steps at the base of our hand. Okay, let's look at these guys and see if we can catch some things there. We'll take the first step and see where the first step comes. Okay, right here, you can see that this guy steps across his body. See his toe sticking out? This guy is not bad. This guy is probably a little too short in his stance along with the first guy. But again, the hula hoop helps you to maintain a little bit of reference points there as you step out and step at your hand. Take a look at the next group. Again, the next group lines up in a left-handed stance, and they got, again, the foot is on the inside of the hoop, the back foot is on the outside of the hoop, and the hand is directly in front of the toe. The hand is directly in front of the toe. And this is one thing that we preach upon every day, that the hand stays in front of their toe, because the hand becomes the measuring point for the first step. Okay? Again, watch the first step come out. Okay? You can see that some guys, this guy right here wasn't bad. Okay? This guy actually stepped with the wrong, his foot step wasn't long enough. This guy's step wasn't long enough. Again, you can see some guys really emphasizing trying to keep your back flat as we come down through that drill. What we're going to do is that we went through the first step, as we talked about it, the measuring point, again, stepping at the hand. The second step should be out of the hoop. So we step with this first step here at the hand. The second step that we make ought to be out of the hoop as well. So let's take a look at and see exactly what we're talking about here. So we'll stop it on the second step here. The first step, okay, right here. The second step is out of the hoop. The good example is this guy right here in the second way right here. He stepped at his hand, and the second step is out of the hoop there, okay? First, second. First, second. First, second, okay? First, second. Again, we don't want to be in a situation where we're raising our shoulders up like this, okay? We want to make sure we're keeping the back flat, okay, as we come out of our stance. Okay, let's look at the second group here. First, then second step. Okay, you can see right here, this guy right here was a little bit better. He stepped in his hand. Now his second step was a little bit long, okay? Got out of there too long. This guy right here was a little bit better. Stepped in his hand. Second step was out of the hoop. This is what wasn't too bad here. Okay, next guy stepped in his hand. Next guy was better. Each time you do this drill, you can see the guys improving and getting better and better as they go through this drill. Okay, next step right here. First step, again, second step, out of the hoop. Guy takes his first step, second step, he's out of the hoop. Not too bad here, not too bad here all the way down the line. Again, making sure that when they step, they're stepping outside the hoop. Okay, good. The next area we're getting into is that as we step out of our stance, now what we're going to tell them is what to do with their hands. So the next area we'll get to is that we're going to go to a two-man sled. And in a two-man sled, the first thing that we'll do, we'll emphasize the first step, we're going to shoot our hands, okay? And again, because we're a penetrating defense, and because in most of our alignments that we're all set, you're going to see that when we step, that our hands are going to be hitting in a certain area of the offensive blocker. For instance, is that if we're stepping inside with our inside foot, our first hand should come to the heart of the blocker, and the second part of that ought to come on the shoulder, on the outside shoulder of the blocker. So you'll see this as we go through the sled. The second part of this is that we want to shoot the hands and finish, okay? And when I talk about finishing, is I'm talking about shooting those hands, rolling those hips, and finishing through that blocker as we go. So we'll take a look at the film and show you exactly what we're talking about here. Now, what you notice here is that we take an alignment on the sled. We try to take and put our inside foot that's back and split the crotch of a blocker. You can see that this guy on this side takes his inside foot and he lines it in the crotch of the blocker. So when we shoot our hands and feet have to be coordinated as we shoot our hands into the sled. So as we look at the first guy coming off the sled here, okay, the first thing we're going to notice right here is that when we come out of the sled, the first thing I'm going to do is stop it as we step. Now, the first things you notice about the first guy here, okay, which is not good, is that he sinks his hips inside before he steps. And we don't want that, okay? And that's the emphasis I wanted to show you. We want to drop our hips before we step. We want to step and shoot those hips into the blocker as we go. If you notice the guy on the right, when he steps, he's a little bit more in tune to shooting his hips as he brings his hands, okay? Now, the second part of this is that we never want to lead the back foot back. We want to snap that back foot up. So what we're saying here as we hit this sled is to step and snap the back foot up. You can see that the lineman on the right, when he steps at his hand, okay? It's a little bit short, but he snaps his back foot up, okay? Now, the guy on the left, what you see, is that he sinks his hips, and that makes him a little late. And he's actually catching as he delivers a blow. Whereas you see the guy on the right is shooting his hands a little bit more into the pad. Now, again, as I talked about earlier, making sure that the inside hand is at the heart of that blocker, you can see the emphasis with the guy on the right here. His hand is a little bit more to the heart. You can see the guy on the left here is more of a catcher here. He's not attacking it, he's more catching it because of the way he shoots his hips. Let's go to the next guy so you can see the difference, okay? Again, we got two more guys, okay, coming off. And I'll do the same thing with them, and so you can see the difference in their steps. Okay, now, here's a situation where we talked about earlier, is that we want to make sure that our hands are in front of our toe, okay? Because, again, the hand becomes a measuring point. Now, the first thing I want you to notice is that when this guy steps out, I want you to notice where his first step goes. It goes out, okay? And, again, that's not good because he's not using his first step. He's not using his hand as a measuring point. So when he steps, he must step at the base of his hand, okay? Let's look at the guy on the right, okay? Let's look at where his hand is first. If you notice about his stance, his hand is inside of his foot. So therefore, when he steps, his first step is going to be on the outside of his hand. See on the outside there? So he's going to lose a little bit of leverage there. So in both instances, you see two guys that are not stepping the correct way at their hands, okay? So again, first step is too wide, it's not at his hand, and the second step is probably because of where his hands are lined up first is a little bit too far to the outside, okay? Now, let's look at their deliver, okay? Okay, 94, because of his wide steps right here, he does not deliver the block real well into the sled, okay? And the other thing that happens is that he ducks his face, okay, which loses a little bit of area of trying to find out where the ball is. So again, what he's got to do is when he steps out, he's want to step and keep his head up as he shoots his hand. Hand placement is not bad, okay? The other guy on the right, his hand placement is a little bit suspect because it's not in the middle, right down the heart of the blocker, okay? Again, now let's take a look at their back foot, okay? See if it snaps up. Most of the guys snap their back foot up, okay, as they took their step. But you can see that everything that they do is predicated on their first step. So again, we preach again, stance, alignment, and this all has to do with stance and alignment. It's making sure that our hand and our feet are together as we step. And then when we step into the bag right here, we want to make sure we pop that bag and deliver a blow as we go into it, okay? Now, you can see that we overemphasize of moving the feet here, of snapping that back foot up so we can get movement and finishing the block here, okay? Let's look at the next two guys, see if we got any improvement here. Okay, again, you see 91, the first thing he does is shoots, he lunges, okay? And he lunges out like that, and his feet, his hips, that's a lot of wasted motion there when you lunge, okay? He's got to step into that bag, and then as he steps into it, he delivers and shoots his hip. The second guy right here is a little bit better, brings his hands out and delivers into a blocker here. The other things I want to emphasize as we get into this block is that number one thing that we got to be able to do is that as we shoot our hands into the blocker, we got to be able to separate. So again, we'll talk about separation, getting our hands locked out so that that blocker, as we make contact with that blocker, that we're separated from that blocker as we start to make contact with that block there, okay? Now, let's take a look at these two because it's a little different with these two here. First of all, what you notice is that the alignment is not very good. First thing, these two guys are head up on the bag instead of shaded, okay? Is look at their hand. The hand placement on the left is not too bad with this guy on the left here, okay? Look like the guy on the right here is about ready to step into his hand. You can see he's a little suspect because his toe is kind of lingered out there, okay? Let's look at their first step here, coming off the ball, okay? Again, 52 does the same thing. Again, he shoots his hips instead of stepping with his hands, okay? You can see his feet haven't gone anywhere yet, okay? Again, our first measuring point is to step at our hand. And you notice that right here that the guy on the left doesn't step at his hand. So again, you'll get more power when you step at your hand, okay? Now, he sinks his hips before he even steps, so there's not a lot of power there. There's a lot of lunge there, okay? The guy on the right here, when he steps, he doesn't step long enough with his first step, but what he does is that he kind of lunges and he doesn't snap his back foot up, so his right foot winds up staying in the same place as his first step. So they haven't gained much ground there again. So there's a lot of things to learn from hitting this sled as far as stance, alignment, first step, back step, hand placement, and finishing the block, okay? So those are the things that we emphasize as we go through on a two-man sled. Okay, now the area that we're going to get into is alignments, okay? Most teams have a generic alignment for defensive linemen. We number our alignments, okay? And we letter our gap of responsibilities. I think that gives our guys reference points so they can understand a little bit about when they line up where their gap of responsibility is. And what I'm going to do now is go down and show you our alignments based on our defense. Again, we're an attacking defense. We consider ourselves more of a 4-3 defense. So in our 4-3 defense, we're going to have certain alignments that we got to be used to. Let's start on the outside with our ends. If you look at the right end, our right end is in what we call a 9 alignment, okay? If we number these alignments and we go down to the numbers, the center is a 0 alignment. On each shoulder of the center, it's a 1. Head up on the guard is a 2. Head up on the tackle is a 4. And head up on the tight end is what we consider a 6 alignment. If we shoulder the alignments, we line up on the shoulder of the center, it's lined up as a 1. On the shoulder of the guard, it's a 3. On the shoulder of the tackle, it would be a 5. And on the shoulder, outside shoulder of the tight end, would be a 9. If we line up on the inside shoulder of the guard, it's called a 2I. Lined up, head up, or inside shoulder on the tackle, it's called a 4I. And if we line up on the inside shoulder of the tight end, it's called a 7. Okay, so those are our alignments as we get through it. So in our basic defense, I'll show you our alignments as we go down the line of scrimmage here. Our defense is called to a certain side, and when we call it to a certain side, we got our defensive end that's lined up on the tight end, and he's in what we call a 9 alignment. In the 9 alignment, we want to make sure in our alignment that our inside foot is back. We want to make sure that our inside foot is back as we line up in a 9 alignment. So we want, as we strike a blow into that tight end, is that we're going to step with our inside foot. Again, this is like we were lining up on a 2-man sled. We want to make sure that we consistently line up in a shade alignment so we can attack the tight end with our inside foot and hand. The second guy in, the 3 technique is what we call it. He's in what we call a 3 alignment, okay? He's on the outside shoulder of the guard, and his inside foot is back. When he steps out of his stance, his inside foot will step and will deliver a blow onto that guard, just like he was on that 2-man sled. On the next guy, our nose, he can be either in a couple different alignments. If he's in a 1 alignment, that means in this alignment here, his right foot would be back. And he will be stepping with his right foot into the shade or the side of that center, okay? So he would be stepping with his right foot into that side of the center. If he was in what we call a 2I, then what he would do is line up, he would shade up on the guard in a 2I, and he would step, or his alignment would be with his outside foot back. He would be stepping with his outside foot, delivering a blow with his outside hand and foot into the inside shoulder of the guard. On the outside, with our end that's lined up with no tight end, he's in what we call a 5 alignment. So again, he would have his inside foot back, and as he steps, he wants to step with his inside foot and inside hand at the outside shoulder of the tackle. That's basically our alignments as we line up and play in our defense. The only variation that we would have is a 1 technique, being lined up in a 2I. And again, I went through the alignments. You can see that we could be in various alignments. But our alignments, again, our kids know because of their alignments of what foot they have to have back at each time they line up in their alignment. On this diagram, what we have is that just like I went through the alignments with on our film, I'm going to show you our alignments as we line up, and we teach our alignments based on stances as we line up on different blockers. For instance, let's go through the tackles first. When we line up, we have a tackle or a nose line up over the center. He's lined up on the center, and if he's shaded to the right, that means that his left foot is back, and his gap responsibility would be to what we call the A gap on that side. So he's going to step with his inside foot, or his left foot in this case, okay? Now, in that situation, as we line up on that line, is that we give a couple different responsibilities to them, and you'll see this progress as we go through it. We line up over the center. We call that center, in this situation, his visual key. That's the guy that's going to tell him a lot of what's going on, a visual key, okay? And so when he comes off the ball, he's stepping to that center will tell him a lot of how to play that gap, okay? The next guy to his side, the guard to that side, is called a pressure key. That pressure key will tell him a lot of how to react in that gap. Okay? So you have a visual key and you have a pressure key when you're in a one alignment. Okay? If we were to shade to the other side, it would be just the opposite. If the nose came to this side, he would have his right foot back. The center would still be his visual, and the guard to this side would be his pressure key. So that will give us the one technique and what his responsibilities are. We go through this. This is like for us, it's like going through scriptures. This is looking at every day as we look at, if we read the Bible, this is in our scriptures every day as we go through it, talking about our alignments, visual, and pressure keys. Let's go to the 2-eye. Okay? Now, what happens when we line up in 2 eyes is that we want to step with the outside foot. Okay? We want to step with the outside foot because we want our outside foot and our outside hand to be strong on that blocker as we step into that guard. Okay? So both guards, as you see right here in this situation, we had 2 guys lined up in 2 eyes. We will both be lined up with our outside foot back because that will be the first foot that we step with. So the outside foot will be the trigger for us because we want our outside foot and hand to be very strong on the inside shoulder of that guard. Now, what is different about this is that both guys have what we call a visual key being the center. The center now is the visual key, okay? That is the guy that's going to tell them a lot of how to react to the block of the guard. So the visual key is the center, the pressure key is the guard. So when they step into the guard, the center will tell them how to react to the guard. Or if they step into the guard on this side, the center will tell them how to react to the guard if the center was coming this way. So again, that's a visual and pressure key. That's a 1 technique and a 2-eye technique for our tackles. Okay, talking with the tackles now inside. As we look at the 3 technique, our 3 technique is lined the same way as we would have our tackles lined up on the center, in that, number 1, his inside foot is back. So when he steps out of his stance, he wants his inside foot to attack the outside shoulder of the guard, okay? So that would be his visual key on the guard. His pressure key would be the tackle. Again, the visual key tells you on how to react to the block. The pressure key tells you how to react to the visual key blocks if they were going in one direction. It's the same thing on the other side. The 3 technique has the inside foot back, and he's shaded to the outside. He's going to step with his inside foot and hand and deliver and get upfield and attack the visual key on the outside shoulder. The pressure key would be the tackle. The tackle will tell him how to react to the visual. They could pull to one side or they could go and come the same way. But at the same point in time, the whole premise of this is to make sure you understand how to step, how to deliver, who to visualize, and who is your pressure key in those situations. Okay, moving on to the 5 technique. The 5 technique would be the same way as a 3. Your inside foot would be back, your outside foot would be up, and you would deliver a blow with your inside hand and foot. And that tackle would become your visual key, okay? On the other side, if we had a 5 technique on the other side, it would be the inside foot back. The inside foot would be stepping with the inside hand. You would attack into the tackle, and the pressure key on the outside of that guy would now be the tight end, who would be on the outside of that 5 technique. You can see the correlation of the 2, okay? A 3 technique, when we teach this a lot of times, we can teach a 3 technique a lot of times along with a 5 because you're going to get some of the same situations, same reads and reactions in those type of situations. Or you can teach a 3 and a 9 a lot of times together as we go through that because basically it's the same steps, the same visuals and pressures on the, even though they're a little bit outside, it gives you the same technique as far as playing to the inside of that play. Okay, as you can look on our alignments here, we have two different alignments up front. We have a jam technique and a 7 technique. You can see the jam technique, we're a little bit more head up on the tight end. We're in what we call a 6 alignment. But we try to keep everything constant as far as visual and pressure keys. Some teams are a little different, but here at Michigan State, this is what we really strive on, and it's really helped us play a lot better at our end. Number one thing is that we take a stance where we bring our outside foot back. Okay, it's lined up at a toe-heel step relationship on the outside, okay, and what we're going to do is step into the tight end. But our gap responsibility will be inside, okay? So in this situation in jam, even though we're head up, our gap responsibility is what we call the C gap. His visual key in this alignment is the tackle in that alignment. His pressure key is the tight end. So we will step into that tight end, but our gap responsibility will be the C gap. It's the same on the other side. If we're in a jam technique, we're stepping with the outside foot, we're delivering a blow with our outside hand and foot, and we're attacking that tight end. But our gap responsibility is the C gap. Okay? Again, our visual key is the tackle, our pressure key is the tight end. If we're aligned in a 7 alignment, which has the same responsibility, but different alignment, we're a little bit more shaded on the inside when we're in a 7. So again, as you look at this alignment, we still have the same alignment, but our visual key will still be the same. Our visual key will be the tackle, and our tight end would be our pressure key on both sides. But at the same point in time, what we're doing, we're stepping and delivering a blow with our outside foot and hand and controlling the C gap. This gives us an opportunity to play the C gap in a different alignment. As you can see, in a jam alignment where we're head up, and a 7 alignment in which we're lined up on the inside. But what stays constant here is the stance and the gap responsibilities and the visual and pressure keys. The other alignment that we have for our ends is called a 9 alignment, okay? In our 9 alignment, as you can see, we really don't have what we call a pressure key unless someone lines up on the outside of the tight end, okay? Which could happen. We could have a fullback out there. We could have anybody that comes in which will give us a pressure key on how to play that block. But again, what stays constant in this look is that we're having our inside foot back and we're delivering a blow with our inside foot and hand on the outside shoulder of the tight end. You can see that happening on both sides. Now, what we will do at some point in time is that we will show a 7 alignment sometimes, okay, and move to a 9. Sometimes when we do that, is that it's based on what a team gives us to do or the changes that may occur within our defensive structure, but we will still be able to play both of those alignments. But again, the thing that stays constant in this look is our feet, is that we want to make sure we're controlling our gap of responsibility based with a good stance and a good blow so that we can control and be able to handle those gap of responsibilities versus those alignments. Next area of responsibilities that we go to after alignments, we go to what we call triangle keys. This is our bread and butter for our defensive tackles and our ends. This is an area that I've done a great deal of research on, and I felt that it has given us great opportunities to play with guys who are very smart and very agile to a point where they can react to certain things based on the visual and pressure keys as we get inside. I'm going to attempt to talk to you a little bit about what we visualize out of our visual and our pressure keys as we're going through our triangle keys. Number one, let's talk about our nose. Our nose has a triangle key, and it starts at the shade of the center. It goes to the outside shoulder of the guard on his side, back up to the near back, back down to the inside shoulder of the guard, and back to his alignment. That area is a concentrated area of things that can happen to a one technique and give him an advantage on how to play certain blocks. Number one, let's say this happens. Number one, if this center was to reach to this side here, okay, and the guard would come to this side, he still would attack the center. His visual key tells him how to attack that center, okay? Let's say that the next emphasis in our triangle key, that this guard blocks away, this center blocks to this side, and now that tells him how to react to the block inside, okay? So again, that's still within his triangle key, all right? Now, the next thing that's a little bit difficult is that the reason why we add this guard into the triangle is this. If this guard was to pull back to the inside, okay, what would happen is that this guy would block down, the guard would block down, and the center would block down, okay? Now, because this guy is coming into the triangle, he, being the nose, would react back to the guard, okay? This guy coming in the triangle helps him react back to the guard. So again, you can see how the triangle can help him. Again, this is going over and making sure they understand the little things about what can happen into your triangle. The next thing that can happen into your triangle that maybe is a little odd is that, let's say that your visual key blocks away, okay, and your pressure key blocks away, and the fullback runs straight ahead to block you, okay? That's another guy coming into your triangle again that you got to be able to attack and fit off your visual key. So again, your visual takes you to one area, the fullback comes into your triangle, tells you how to react to that block, and then it makes you stay at home within your gap area. So it gives you a good feel of what can happen with a one technique in that area. So again, we spend a lot of time on different schemes that can happen every day to a one technique inside versus this look with the one technique, because it's a little different, but at the same time, if you know and understand the schemes in which they're going to get, you can show them how to react to those schemes versed on triangle keys. Okay, with our three technique, as we talked about earlier with our inside foot being back, his triangle key now is a little bit different. Again, the guard is his visual, the tackle his pressure key. So his triangle key goes from the inside shoulder to the center, back to the near back shoulder, back to the outside shoulder to tackle, back to your alignment, okay? Now, what he's got to be able to understand is that what can happen to him if certain things come into his triangle, okay? Number one, let's take a look at this, is that let's say that the guard blocks down, okay? And this guard comes into his triangle, okay? Now, what's going to happen there is that he's visualizing that there's a possibility of something that's going to take place. Either that guard's going to come down to block him, or that guard's going to come to the outside, okay? A couple different things can happen. So that's one element of help him to react to something in this triangle. Let's go to another element here that can happen. Let's say that he gets a block here on the outside, and the tackle blocks down, okay? That's in his triangle. So his reaction would be to work back to his pressure key, which is the tackle, because they're trying to run on the outside there. So everything is predicated on that triangle that's happening outside, okay? Let's go to one more element here, which can happen. Let's go to this guy blocking here and this guy blocking the linebacker, okay? Coming down inside. That's kind of a scoop block. So the visual's going down inside. He has to attack the visual, and the pressure key is telling him that he's got to stay on the visual, okay? Because nothing else is inside that triangle telling him to react the other way. Let's give him one more now that's bringing the triangle to the outside. Let's say that this guy blocks down, okay? This guy blocks down, and this guy comes around, okay? He steps down on the guard. He feels a guard pulling into his triangle. That helps him to work back into the tackle to brace himself because something is happening on the outside of his triangle. But again, we spend a lot of time on the different schemes that we're going to get every day based on triangle keys. Our 3 techniques, our 1 technique, when we spend time on this, we're getting certain schemes that are going to happen to these guys within this blocking structure. I think, again, this is the best way to teach inside guys how to play different blocking schemes based on triangle keys, because schemes are changing every day, but you got to have a basis to start at so guys know how to react versus a 1 and a 3 technique inside. Okay, let's go to the ends now on triangle keys versus outside. Let's go to the 5 technique first, because this is really interesting here, and this could really help your ends play a lot better on different schemes that they're going to see. 5 technique, again, the inside foot is back. His visual key is the tackle. He has no pressure key, okay, unless someone lines up on the outside. All right, his triangle key goes down from the outside shoulder of the tackle down to the far shoulder of the center, back up to the near back to where his alignment is, okay? Now, what he's got to be able to do is that within that triangle key, he's got to be able to pick up what can happen. A whole key to a 5 technique, being able to play a triangle key, is what the tackle does, okay? Number 1, let's say this. If the tackle blocks outside, he takes him away from his triangle keys inside. So his responsibility is outside, and he no longer has any responsibility inside, okay? So his triangle keys are no longer in existence when that tackle blocks outside. Now, if that tackle blocks inside, now is where his triangle keys are got to pick up, and he's got to be able to understand how to react when that tackle blocks down. Number 1, let's do this. The number 1 thing that happen is that if this guy blocks down and the fullback comes to kick him out, okay, that right there is the first thing that we work on, and that's like, say, a power play, okay? And what we do in certain alignments of our defense, we have our 5 techniques have a technique that we call spill. Now, what that means is that we're going to wrong arm the fullback and try to force that play to go to the outside, okay, based on that blocking scheme there, okay? And that fullback will allow us to do that. Now, teams will disguise this a lot. As we start to see us do different things a lot, teams will basically take the fullback and bring him here and then bounce him to the outside and do different things to make you react different ways. But again, you got to have a basic way to defend this. When that tackle blocks down, you have what we call certain things that you got to look for in your triangle keys. Let's go to the next phase of this. Okay, let's say the tackle blocks down, okay, and the guard pulls into the triangle. When that guard pulls into the triangle, now what you are reading in that particular look is that you're looking at the route of that guard, meaning this guard could be deep or he could be flat, okay, which tells you a little bit about the nature of the play or how you have to attack the guard. So let's take the first one is that when the guard is flat to the line of scrimmage. When he's coming down flat to the line of scrimmage, what we're telling our ends is that he's coming to kick you out. So if he's coming to kick you out, you got to be able to attack him and wrong arm him and make that play bounce. So that guy blocks down, we come under, we wrong arm that guard and force that play to bubble, okay? We force that play to bubble. In a situation like that, you could have as many as 2 guys coming in that triangle. And so that's another element that we have to work on, because now if you got 2 guys, we are telling our guys you got to be able to get 2 of them out of the play, okay? You may have a guard coming and a fullback coming, okay? At the same point in time, you got to be able to get 2 of those guys and get them out of the play when that tackle blocks down. So what I've given you is that when that tackle block's down, you may not only have a guard coming into that triangle, you may have another back coming in there. You may have a backside tackle coming in there, okay? Or you may have a near back coming in there when that tackle blocks down. But at any rate, your responsibility changes to inside on that triangle to making that play bounce either out or coming back to the inside, okay? By the way you play this down block on that tackle. It's a very good basic way to tell your ends how to play that play, but at the same time, they got to have a basic way to understand what that triangle will do. Again, just to re-emphasize a couple things. Number one, when that tackle blocks outside, no triangle keys. Number two, when that tackle blocks down and it is now the triangle key is in effect, and now you got to be able to pick up certain things within that triangle. A team may give you this. They may give you a down block here and pull the tackle around. You got to figure out what your team will want to do based on that look. But at any rate, when that tackle blocks down, that end is triggered to come down inside to blow any kind of kick-out blocks up or any kind of log blocks up that may occur to the outside in that situation. But that's basically, that's how we tell our ends to play that particular look in a 5 technique. The 7 technique is not much different in that we're taking another alignment, okay, on the tight end. But the thing that stays constant here is our visual and pressure keys. Okay, again, the other thing that stays constant is that we still have a triangle key that we have to look at. Number one, it still goes from the tight end down, it's a little bit wider, down to the outside shoulder of the center, back up to the back, back down to where you align. Now, if that tackle blocks down, who is your visual, that particular key on that tackle will gear everything up to looking inside on the visual keys of anything coming into that triangle. If that tackle blocks outside, then you no longer have anything inside in a triangle. So in teaching this particular alignments, what you have in this look right here is that you have two guys. You have two different alignments. But the thing that stays constant is the visual key and the triangle, okay? Which helps you to understand a little bit about what's going to take place inside and outside when those particular plays happen. What I'll attempt to do now is talk about triangle keys that I just talked about in a diagram form, and now what I'll give you is the actual footage to let you see a little bit about what the tackles are keying and some of the reads we get as linemen inside. So let's take a look at the defensive tackles first. Okay, and I'm going to skip to the end zone so you can see a little bit more about what takes place on the inside, okay? Let's take a look at the first guys inside. Right here, if you look at the 3 technique right here, okay, let's take a look at the 3 technique. Again, his visual key is the guard. Pressure key is the tackle, okay? Let's see how he reacts to his particular key here, okay? Again, his pressure key blocks down on him, okay? So now he's thinking right now that he's got to play, double team right here, okay? So the first thing he does, he takes a step, when he takes a step in that tackle, and now to the guard, and now what he's going to do is brace himself, get his shoulder down a little bit, and work back into the tackle right here. And that's his gap of responsibility right there as you see it, okay? That's pretty good because now what happens, he's braced himself in that position. Now he's got a position right here that he's got to hold, okay? So that's pretty good on his visual and pressure keys. The other tackle, let's take a look at the other tackle now. He's in what we call a 2-eye, okay? Now, his visual key, remember, is the center. His visual key is the center. His pressure key is the guard, okay? So now, what he's doing in there as a defensive lineman, and this is what we have him doing a lot of times, is that we'll try to read a lot of times stances and mannerisms inside that may occur with an offensive lineman. We feel when we study film a lot, one of the things that as we study film, linemen give things away, okay, on certain plays. Whether their stance is different, whether they take a different alignment, but they'll give something away in that situation. And we'll study those things to try to help us to defend against some of the things that we're going to see inside. Okay, now the first thing that 2-eye technique sees is that center. That center blocks away, so the first thing he's thinking about is that his gap responsibility has got to be inside. His pressure key tells him that he's got to stay in that gap and brace himself in that gap right there. That's his gap responsibility. That 3 technique's got to stay on the outside right here. You can see right here, if we stay in our gaps and do the things we're supposed to do, you can see it works out to be pretty good. Again, you see that 2-eye technique. What foot is he supposed to step with? He steps with that outside foot. He delivers a blow on that guard inside. The 3 technique steps at that guard. He works his shoulder back into that tackle. He braces himself into the inside. You can see right there that if we do the things we're supposed to do, then that hems that play up inside pretty good. That's a good job right there of reading your visual and pressure keys. The next one, I'll skip to the end zone. Okay? Again, we have a 2-eye and a 3. A 2-eye and a 3. 3 technique. His triangle keys start here at the guard, goes down to the center, back up to the back to him. Or back to the tackle, back to him. So as he's looking at that, he's going to try to key that, okay? So his visual key, as he looks at it right now, he's probably looking at his stance and seeing that his stance is a little light. So when his visual key pulls to the inside, his first step, he's going to step, and he's going to probably try to cross that center right there, okay? That's a good job. He steps, he reads that, he crosses that center, okay? So that's his visual. His visual told him that he's got to cross that center. Okay, let's look at the guy inside, the 2-eye. The 2-eye, his visual key is, again, the center. The center blocks back right here, okay, right here. He blocks back. But now the next thing he feels his pressure key block down on him. So what that makes him do is stay inside on his guard. So he doesn't want to go anyway. So you'll see him force that thing back right here, okay? You'll see him force that thing back and be ready to play that ball back right there. Good job right here. Because if he had gone down with the center, then you can see he would have been in big trouble. So again, what he does, those 2 guys do a good job inside of really trying to clog that thing up, but again, feeling their visual or reacting to their visual and pressure keys inside. Good. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, right here, what we have is that in this situation right here, we have a 3 technique, as we see it right here, and we have a 2-eye, okay? His visual key is the guard, okay? It goes right here, starting out, it goes to this tackle, back to the back to the center, back to him, okay? Let's take a look at the 3 technique and see what happens, okay? Now, his visual blocks down inside, okay? His pressure, who is a tackle, comes toward him. So he pressures the 3 technique, the guard, back to the inside, okay? That means he's got to stay in that gap and knock that guy over that line of scrimmage, okay? And that's what he's got to do. The 2-eye technique, he's lined up over the guard. His visual key is the center. His pressure key is the guard. That center comes toward him. He's got to step into that guard and knock that guard back, as you see what he's doing here, and hold his ground. Pretty good job right here by both those guys, okay? You can see that that play has nowhere to go if those guys stay in their gap. It's a good job by the 2-eye technique standing in his gap right there, okay? He bounced out the last minute, okay? But again, you can see the squeeze by the 3 technique, and you can see the good job by the 2-eye technique on the backside right there. Real good job. You see 2-eye, visual, pressure. 3 technique, visual, pressure key on the outside. Okay, let's watch the 2-eye first. The 2-eye knows, okay, his visual blocks back, okay, but the pressure blocks down on him. So what he does is he stays right there and works back into that guard. He doesn't want to go down in here, but he wants to work back into the guard. So when he works back into that guard there, he's really forcing that guy backward. That's a real good job by him, okay? Now what he sees also, he sees this guy coming into his triangle, which tells him now he's got to work back into that guard. Good job working back into that guard there. Really narrows that hole out. Okay, let's take a look at the 3 technique. 3 technique right here is tight, guard pulls, And you can see right here when that guard pulls, he's trying to cross that center right here. Trying to cross that center and get across. He should have not come back in that side, but continue to get across. Real good job by the 2I. Let's go to the inside right here. We got a 2I and a 3. Okay, right here, you can see, let's look at the 2I first. The 2I, his visual key is the center. Okay, center pulls around this time. Okay, he stays right there in that gap and presses it back because that guard, that center is trying to come around. He presses that thing back and closes up that hole. That's a very good job by the 2I. Okay, closes that guard off because he sees the center block back. Very good job closing that gap off. You can see there's nowhere to run when that 2I does what he's supposed to do. But again, his visual key is the center. Steps with the outside foot, delivers a blow on that guard, plays a good leverage, knocks the guard back, and really works to close that hole off. Okay, the 3 technique backside. Okay, his visual key is the guard. The guard sets to the inside. He's got to close that hole off, the A gap, but he's also got to stay in the B gap. Okay, when he closes that hole off, that's his gap of responsibility. This gap responsibility inside is handled by that linebacker right there. So if he was to jump across, then we would have too many guys in that gap. So by him staying there gives us a chance for that running back. Now, he doesn't want to go there. He'll have to continue to the outside or even come back in there. But when your gaps sound like that and you have good triangle key work inside, then it's hard to run the ball in there if the guys are doing what you ask them to do. That's a good job by those 2 guys inside. Okay, we got a 2I again. Okay? All right, now let's look at the 2I this time. The center is his visual key. Okay? Now, a couple things that he's got to notice in this alignment. Number one, if I'm looking at this alignment right here, first thing I notice that the guard is looking at me. The tackles are looking down to the inside. Okay? The other thing that I see is that they're in an up stance. Every one of those guys are in an up stance. So there's a couple things, pre-keys that we got to see. Okay? He steps, and his visual key, the center, blocks outside. So now that tells him that he's got to do what? Press that hole to the outside, which he does right here. See him press that hole to the outside. Okay, again, that's a big key. When that center pulls like this, he can either cross that or press that hole out to the outside there. Okay? There was no way that play was designed to run somewhere inside if they found seams in there. Okay? Let's take a look at the next one, the 3 technique. 3 technique, the guard steps to the inside. He presses the guard to the inside and closes them off with a good block or a good force back into that guard. Again, if you look at this and if you jump back a little bit, you see this 3-man sled in this. Okay? You see a lot of things that we talked about earlier. 3-man sled, steps, hands, body position, closing that hole off, all the things that we've talked about earlier. But it gives our guys a chance to play good. Okay, next one right here. Okay, let's take a look at the 3 technique this time. Okay, 3 technique, guard block standing inside. He's got to press that guard. Step, press that guard, press that guard. Now, what you see in this situation, because this play is designed to cut back, you'll see them right here trying to do what? Trying to cut the ball back right here sometimes, okay? When you see that ball cut back in there like that, sometimes that 3 technique, what you got to do is make sure that you do a good job of pressing that guard out so he doesn't come off. Real good job by 2I technique. Look at our 2I technique right here. Steps at the guard, presses that guard out along with that center. Okay, you see that linebacker right there is in pretty good shape right there to be free. Both those linebackers are free to make that play. Sometimes in our defense, what you'll see is that you'll see our guys playing 3s and 2s, okay, which is good because that's how we practice. Now right here, you'll see the 3 technique. Let's look at the 3 technique to the right. This guard is going to try to block him, okay? And what he's going to try to do is attack that guard and maintain that gap on the outside, okay? Now, the 1 technique, okay, which is he's a little bit tighter on the 1, that center is his visual key. That center blocks away. He's got to penetrate that gap right there. See that guy trying to cut him? He's got to penetrate that gap. But you see the 3 technique moving that way, and you see the 1 technique moving that way. We ought to have a big play out of those guys right there. Again, that goes back into triangle keys again. 3 technique, his triangle key goes to the tackle, back up to the near back, back down to the center, back to him. The one technique, his visual key is the center. It goes to the outside shoulder of the guard, back up to the back on the outside shoulder of the center, back to him. You can see the penetration in this look right here gives them a chance to make a play. That's a good job right there, making sure those guys are doing a good job getting around the play. 2-eye, okay, right here on the movement right here. You see what happens right here? 2-eye, it moves to a 2-eye, and the other guy sometimes will stay inside right here, okay? Okay, based on game plan. But what I wanted to show you in this look, we have in this situation that we wind up playing with two eyes. So both of those guys in that situation have the visual key of the center, okay? Have the visual key of the center. So if the center steps to one side, the backside guy ought to be free. So you can see that backside guy coming through and making a play on that backside right there. He ought to be free if that happens on the backside. The 2-eye on the front side, because the center steps to him, he ought to be able to make a play right here. So you can see that 2 linemen inside, because they have the same visual and the same steps that they're trying to make, you can see that both of them are in pretty good positions to make those plays because of the triangle keys that they have. Okay, again, our visual key for our ends. It starts on the outside shoulder of the tackle, back down to the center, back to the near back, back to him. If the guy's in a 9, his triangle keys is a little bit wider. It goes all the way down to the center, back up to the near back, back to him. Okay, let's take a look at right here. Let's take a look at our left end, our right end on this case right here. That tackle blocks down, so his triangle keys are triggered inside. So what he's going to try to do is go down as flat as he can and he make a play there. That's his triangle key down to the inside. Okay? You see the backside end. He has the tackle, the tight end blocks out, so he has no responsibility inside. No responsibility inside because his triangle is mostly out. His triangle is inside, so by that tight end not blocking down, he has no triangle key inside. Good job by the end. Okay, next play. Okay, let's take a look at our left end. Tackle blocks out, so he has no longer a triangle. He's got to play outside leverage on the tackle. Tackle tries to turn on him. He's got to keep outside leverage because he has no triangle key inside. Let's take a look at the tight end, the end backside, the right end. Tight end turns outside. He has no triangle key inside, so he keeps leverage on the outside. Okay, next play. Both ends are up. Here's a 9 technique here. Tight end blocks down. Okay, again, that tight end blocks down. Now he has a triangle key inside. He goes down. Here comes the fullback. He spills the fullback right there, okay? By spilling the fullback, we make that play bounce where? Outside for that linebacker, okay? Back, the end on the backside, that guy blocks out, so he has no triangle inside. Pretty good job by the end, spilling the play, make it bounce to the outside. Next play, both ends right here, one's in the 5 and the 9. Okay, this tackle on this side blocks down. So his triangle is right now, he's looking inside because he's got to check his triangle out. Here comes the fullback. He goes down, he spills the fullback right here. He goes down, he gets inside that fullback. Okay, he's got to keep driving to make that play bounce. Okay, you see the end on this side, his tight end blocks out, so he no longer has a triangle inside. So he knocks the tight end back, but he keeps leverage on the outside. So good job by the end. This end right here on the right side is what we call a jam. His visual key is to tackle. So remember now, he's in the C gap. He's an inside player. So that tackle blocks down, he is gone. The end on the left here, the tackle blocks out, so he no longer has a triangle inside. Okay, so he stays outside and keep outside leverage on that block. Good job by that end. Okay, let's take a look at this end on this side here. Tackle blocks down, triangle. Okay, nothing coming. Here comes one guy right here. Now, the thing that he's got going from this back was a little late getting to kick him out. So he actually beat the back, the kick out block, and made the tackle on the back. That may happen sometime, but he did take the right angle. The end on the other side. his visual key blocked out, so he no longer had a triangle inside. So he crashed the end to the inside. Good job by both ends. Okay. Good job by this end right here. To the right, the end to the right here has no triangle because the tackle blocks out. So he keeps leverage on the gap to the outside. You can see the end on the backside right here. They wheel on him, and so what he's trying to do is squeeze the backside gap on both plays, on both blockers. That's a good job right there on the backside. Okay, right end right here no longer has a triangle, keeps leverage on the gap on the outside. Backside in, tackle blocks down, so now he's thinking triangle, and he's looking down to the inside to see if anything's coming. To the passing game. What we look for in our passing game is this. We look for man and zone blocking teams. Okay? Basically, that's what we see in college football today. A lot of man and zone blocking teams. Okay? And what we try to do is that we try to coordinate a lot of our rushes based on those schemes. Okay? For instance, when you run four-man games versus zone protection, you want to work to pull the lineman out of the area. These are called zone concepts. Okay? That means those linemen are going to stay in that area. If you get man protection, okay, with the four-man games, then what we're trying to do is pull those guys. We want to pick those blockers, okay? When we pick those blockers because they're going to stay on us. And so every defender, when we do that, is assigned to pick a guy to free a guy up. So in those two different concepts, we're going to use different schemes based on those two different concepts. So most teams will use this. We got to figure out as we look at the film which ones are given certain ones so we can coordinate our looks as we go through. Okay, the first ones that we look at, man protections right here, okay? That means we look at man protections versus this look. The guard is going to stay on the tackle will stay on the end. The center is kind of a catch-all. He gets a little depth. This guard stays on the nose, and this tackle blocks out on the end. So that presents a man concept for us. That usually, in those situations, those guys are going to stay on those guys. If it's zone protection, then what happens, they're going to slide to a certain area. For instance, this center slides to one side. This tackle slides to that side, irregardless of where their alignment is. And they're going to block a zone concept to that side. The backside blocks a zone concept on the backside, okay? Sometimes in this look, a back's involved in the blocking scheme, which gives them a little bit more leverage on how to block a guy in a zone concept in case the guy is freed up. So again, those are the different two kind of schemes that we basically see as we get into the man and zone rules. Okay, the next ones that we get to are sprint out passes. Sprint out passes mean those guys are going to slide to one side and try to get the quarterback out of the pocket, okay? Which again, that takes our alignment. If we have concepts where we're getting upfield, then again, that's going to hurt some of the things that we do there. So we got to understand that a team will do that. The next one is kind of a zone concept, but it's a gap protection where the offensive line slides to one side and the back blocks out on the other side. So those are man and zone rules a lot of different times as we go through it, okay? Okay. Now, what we try to do to combat some of those things, we use a lot of tackle and end games, okay? And again, guys, when you do these, you can name them anything you want to. We basically name these based on some of the things that we do in our defense. So when we run a rock and an easy or an exit and a Rex or twist and a net, our guys know exactly how we're going to run these based on the people or based on their names as we go through it. And I'll give you a couple examples of this. For instance, our end, when we call our ends are involved in a stunt, it will start with an E, okay? If our boundary end is involved in a stunt, we may start him, we may call it with an R, okay? If the tackle is involved in a stunt, okay, he knows that he's with the end into the boundary, then it's a certain stunt that's involved with that end and tackle. And the same thing about twist. When we run a twist stunt, it involves the two inside guys. So they could really twist it up inside or do something different on the other side based on the two different looks that they have inside. Okay? And then the last one right here is really funny. We have a 2-minute game where we run different zone blocking with 2-minute games, Ron, Rip, Lynn, and Lou. And I'll go through some of those concepts as we get through it. So I want to go through one thing here, back it up, and go through Rex exit. I'm just going to, go through that, okay? All right. Exit. In exit, what we're doing in exit is that our end is going to crash down to the inside. Our tackle will take a step upfield, and he's the contained guy. In Rex, our nose is going to step at the guard. Our end is going to crash down to the B gap. And then our nose tackle will step, and he has contained, okay? We like to run this a lot of times based on teams that we don't know if they're going to run or pass, because sometimes it's a good change up on some of the blocking schemes as they try to block it. On the other side, we run easy, okay? Easy is the 3 technique getting upfield, the end taking a step and coming under, the nose working to the outside, and the end taking a step and coming under. In this situation, both tackles have contained. In twists, what we try to do in twists is that we'll bring the tackle down first. He's got to get in between the guard and the center. The nose is going to step, and he's going to wrap around the tackle. If we run a net, that means the nose is first, the tackle's going to step, and then the tackle will come around the nose. We think both of these stunts are good, either man or zone concepts, okay? We pick and choose based on what they do, but we think both of those schemes will be working very good against man and zone concepts. And then here's some of the drills that we use, okay? A lot of times we talk about hips, okay, and what we do with our hips. We have a lot of times we do a lot of pop-up bag drills where we'll start, and what we want to do is try to run a maze with those drills a lot. I think it gives us a chance to really get our hips around and getting our body upfield, okay, at the same time using our hands to get around those drills. I think that's a good drill to work, okay? The next one that we do is that we try to do a couple things in this drill is that we try to turn at this time and strip the ball out as we're going, okay? At the same time, we're turning in a complete circle as we get around to the bags. Again, this creates a lot of agility. It creates a lot of situations where our guy has to learn to change his body and stay on his feet, but at the same time, it gives him a chance to understand about using his hands and just getting his body back in a right order to get to the quarterback, okay? The next one we do is that we do a scoop or strip drill, which we'll start at one end and come around the hoop as tight as we can. And at that bag, what I'll have is a ball where we're stripping the drill, okay, or stripping the ball out from the quarterback. And at the same time, when we come around there, we're able to strip and scoop the ball as we go, okay? All right. And the last one that we do is called the figure 8, and it's kind of a game that we play. We kind of chase one another. But at the same time, what we're doing in this situation is that we're trying to make the guys stay tight as they can to the hoop. So when we come around that hoop, we're leaning to the left and leaning to the right. And this really simulates a lot of times as we're rushing the passer to keeping our shoulders in a situation where we're staying tight to the hoop as we come around. So we'll use this drill quite a bit to get in a situation where we can get around the blocker. But at the same time, it's good drill work for us to use as we start to use on quarterback situations, as the quarterback starts to scramble and quarterback starts to move out of the pocket and use in those situations. Okay. On the last drill that we do here, what we do is that we do a lane check. And what I'll do is place the quarterback in a lot of different situations. And I'll take our alignment and align our line in a lot of different areas. And I want to make sure that our guys stay in the proper lanes and getting to the quarterback based on where the block is. The quarterback could be to the right. We could have the end. He doesn't want to come inside when he has contained. Or the end on the backside here. If the quarterback is all the way across the field, he could come inside. The tackle could work to the inside based on where the quarterback is. So we do this drill every day based on the scheme that we're going to get, and it's called lane check. And that's something that we do every day when we are preparing for a team. We really hope you enjoyed the video. We hope that the video that we did today with you will help your team do all the things they need to do to be champions.